Well, good day, everyone, and welcome to the AA-ISP webinar series. Today's webinar is how B2B purchasing decisions have changed. Hello, everyone. I hope you're well. My name is Larry Reeves, and I'm the CEO for the association. And it's my pleasure to serve as your host today. I'd like to thank you all for joining us, and we certainly hope you find the time and webinar beneficial. Now, we encourage questions, and you can send them at any time via the Q&A or chat log down at the bottom of your screen. And we're going to answer as many of those as we can during the session and the Q&A at the end, and we'll follow up directly with you on any others that we don't have the opportunity to get to. I'd also like to remind everyone that this webinar is going to be available for replay, and we'll get access information will be sent to you so that you can grab that and do a replay if you like. Now, before we start, for those of you who may not be familiar with the AA-ISP, I'd like to just provide a brief introduction. Now, the association is essentially a learning-based association dedicated to inside sales and developed to help individuals, teams, and organizations improve. Now, we do this by providing a variety of resources and services for all levels, by the way, whether you're an individual contributor, a manager, or an executive. Now, this includes our Inside Sales Studio, which features individuals of all levels and industry sharing tips and best practices. As curators for our profession, we've gathered one of the largest online reference materials for inside sales professionals. And our conference and webinar series have learned to become one of the better reference materials for content-based learning. Now, some of the services include our Ask an Expert forum, our mentor program, our service provider directory, the Career Center, and our accreditation and training programs. But you know, in addition to all this, many of our more than 10,000 members from across the globe tell us one of their favorite benefits they get from membership is simply the ability to connect with fellow inside sales professionals and just learn, share, and network with each other. And we do this through our conferences and also a thriving chapter program of over 70 chapters across the world, which again really helps bring those local communities together. Now, if you'd like to learn more about the AAISP, I invite you to check it out. But now let's move to today's topic and why we're here. And that's about understanding the purchasing process, right? And how this hasn't changed, but more importantly, how we can address it and take advantage of some of these emerging buyer trends. I think most of us on the call would agree. We need to not only understand our buyers' needs and how our products can serve them, but we also need to understand their buying personas and how this affects their purchasing decisions. And that's incredibly impactful, and that's what we're going to be talking about. And I'm very excited about our session and our presenter, as he has over 30 years of sales and lead generation experience in both domestic and international markets. He currently leads the customer success team at MarketJoy, which is one of the leading B2B lead generation and sales development companies around. So you know that understanding and managing the buyer is incredibly important to him and his team's success. And he's here to share some of those key things he's learned along the way with us. So with that, it's my pleasure to welcome the VP of Customer Success at MarketJoy, Curtis Bendt. Curtis, welcome. Great to have you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Curtis Bendt, work with MarketJoy, oversee their customer success currently. But as was referenced, have 30 years of experience in call center operations, lead generation, sales, everything from building out campaigns from the ground up for outsource environments and providing training and support to make certain those work, but moving into lead generation for companies like CNET, CBS Interactive, Cox Automotive. So very familiar with internal operations of sales development and business development teams, as well as outside lead gen operations, similar to what MarketJoy provides. So today, we're really going to look at the buyer personas, but also, how to approach them and what they're looking for. So that way, when you look at your marketing channels and tools, you can have that additional insight into how to contour those to fit their needs. So, first, really, what is a buying persona? Really, where you get that, it's the state of mind of a buyer and the responsibility of a buyer. And what I mean by that is the state of mind of a buyer being where they are in the sales funnel, what they're looking for, what will attract them to your company, and then also responsibility of buyer. When you're working, especially in a B2B environment, it's not only where they are in the stage of the sales funnel, but also what they're trying to accomplish. And understanding both of those is extremely important. And you'll find the state of mind and responsibility personas really, really want the same things. They need to know the product is out there. According to Google, 71% of buying decisions begin with just a generic query. And here you'll find, what we're referring to as unaware social buyers. Just out there, they don't even know the product is there until you make them aware of it. Then you really move into the education. They want education. They need to know what the product does for them. They know that now that they need it, so what problems does it solve? So understanding that stage obviously would be catering towards feature, benefit, more importantly, the solution behind those. They want to know who does it best when they move into that validation stage. They're now aware of it. They've done a little bit of research. They see that the product itself is going to provide them with some value, and now they're going to look to who to buy it from. Here's what most sales agents ask for. They ask for leads in this state, where really it's just going to be a comparing of, a battle of features and costs in order to bring that customer on. And then, of course, the buying part, where they want to know that they've made the best choice. So selling doesn't stop, and understanding the buying personas doesn't stop once the deal's closed. It actually, that's the middle point. You want to understand exactly, ongoing validation of product value. That's going to help retention. You'll always be selling those customers and keeping them engaged in your product. And there, so we have the B2B purchasing decision process pretty much, where they realize the problem, the need. That's the awareness. They perform research, education. They establish their buying criteria, validation. They evaluate vendors, sales, and purchase. And we have, again, everybody I'm certain has seen something similar to this, where you have the B2B purchasing funnel, which is exactly those stages we ran through: awareness, education, validation, buying, and the types of personas attached to those, where you'll have unaware social buyers, social online buyers, sales leads, and then eventually customers. So really, what's new to that? Everybody's pretty familiar, especially if you're in sales or lead gen, with that funnel. So looking at some important variables for the purchase process, you can see some interesting stats here we've been able to pull together. Connections to executives in your company, 32%, analyst rankings, 34, case studies, testimonials, 41. And these are, the percentages that folks are putting, into where they're making a buying decision. You can also see that the things that are referenced escalate as they move down the funnel as well. So when you get to pricing, deployment time, ease of use, solve the pain point, features, and functionality, those represent a higher aspect of the buying decision because the customer is simply further along in the sales funnel. And so looking into this a little bit deeper, you have these types of buyers based on decision making. Excuse me. You have online buyers. Those are aggressively do online research before buying. They want to know what makes you the best. They're concerned with why your product is the right fit for them. You have social buyers, which is a growing segment. They're going to love to socialize, obviously, strongly believe in word of mouth, concerned to know exactly how your product solves their problem. And then you have the unaware buyers. They don't even know their pain points or if there's a solution there. Looking at some general lead gen techniques for these different buying personas, you have lead generation channels for online buyers. What you'd be looking at is SEO, search engine optimization, obviously, pay-per-click, social media ads, answering on Q&A websites. You want to get your information out there as much as possible, the content, so that it's found with these online buyers. With social buyers, you utilize tools like events, webinars, podcasts, educational videos. And then with unaware buyers, email marketing, strategic calling, content marketing, referral marketing. You want to get your message out there. You want to make them aware that the product is there. So 2 key points, and this is really where we look at that buying persona from a slightly different angle. And that's knowing that you have to give the customer the reason why they need your product. It's the key to sales. If you give them the reason why, everything else is smooth. They understand why they need your product, and that's the hurdle you have to accomplish. And then customers are looking for the ownership experience in every buying stage. It's kind of the Amazon trend, where individuals want to know exactly what's going on with their products and services at any time. They want to feel invested. They want to feel they own part of it, and they definitely want to feel like they own the experience. So understanding that in how you package your marketing will make a difference in how it's consumed once you bring it to market. So going back through those points, you have awareness where they're not, they're actually unaware of what's out there. So you have to create the need. Here you can tap into online buyers. 66% of B2B prospects rank industry-specific content as very important. So you want to leverage online publishers that cater to your industry. Get that information out there. You want to operate SEO, pay-per-click, and social marketing campaigns to increase content distribution. And you want to market an alternate channel via verticals that lead into your product. So look at what is being received and people are interacting with, and how your product might relate to that. And you're able to parallel that and pull from that audience an awareness of your product in some cases. You have to give the why. And again, we're at that awareness stage. So you have to make sure that these persona is going to need to know why they need your product. So keep this in mind on all content marketing. Identify on the solution of the pain versus the pain when approaching this persona, because this persona likely doesn't even know they have a pain. So when you're trying to make individuals aware of what your product is, make sure they understand what it solves first. Because if you identify with the pain and they don't, you're missing that audience. And then ownership in that awareness phase. This persona doesn't want to be sold. They don't understand that they need the product or service. So what you have to keep in mind at this stage is that you have to let them discover their need. Educational seminars, webinars, white papers, online publications, trade shows and events. Again, getting it out there so they have discovered it. You have not brought it to them. They have found it. They have owned that interaction from the very beginning. Education. Now they're in that second stage of the sales funnel. And so you want to look at it and you want to feed the need. So tap into online researchers. 67% of all buyers utilize peer reviews. So leverage online publishers that cater to your industry, case studies, operate SEO and pay-per-click, social marketing campaigns to increase content distribution, market in alternative verticals that lead into your product, very similar to the awareness stage. However, you want here to make sure, again, you give them the why. This persona is going to want to know what it does for them and why they need it. So here you want to bring the pain into the solution, let them know how easy your life can be with your product and service, and content focus should be on life without the solution. So here now you're giving them the why they need the product once they understand the solutions that it really does provide and the need is created. And then again on this stage, you want to look at ownership. So this persona is going to want to find you. So you have to let them find you. Again, SEO, pay-per-click marketing, email campaigns, phone campaigns, trade show and events all help do that. The point is that now that they have found the solution or product, they have established their need by running into material and marketing material that shows them what it solves. Now they're going to look for and start to look for products, and they'll go out there. And again, they want to find you versus necessarily you bringing your product to them at this stage. And then validation, when they move into that buying cycle fully. And here you want to remove the need. So this persona is looking for who to buy from. So you want to focus your marketing on differentiators. You want to pay attention to what customers like and listen to. That's key. What are the clients doing with your product once they have bought it? Highlight your features as features here along with their benefit. Competitor comparisons are great. Nothing sells like human interaction, so leveraging email, phone, and social lead generation to schedule demos for sales teams at this point. You do have an individual now that does want to be sold to because they want to know what your product does exactly in relation to the pain they now realize they have and the solution they now desire. Video testimonials also go a long way here. Then you want to also in the stage, again, we're running through that same cycle of understanding how do we give a customer, a potential customer, the why, and how do we give them ownership of this whole process of them coming to discovering, analyzing, valuing, and then buying your product. So here, this persona is going to want to know why they should choose you. One thing is challenge your customer. Customers want to be educated and shown a new approach to what they know, engage in conversation, pay attention to what pains sell your product and focus marketing on these. 81% of buyers buy directly due to a pain point being addressed at this point. If you remember that grid or that chart, you saw how the percentages grew as they moved down the sales funnel. And here you have someone right near the very last stage. Train your sales team on how to probe for the customer's needs. Customers don't buy a blanket product. You have to customize your product for each client to make certain that they understand the value as it pertains to their particular environment and situation. You want to cater your product to fit your customer's specific pains. And again, with ownership here, they want to own that experience. This persona is going to want to be involved in the decision-making process. Understand that an average of 6.8 people are involved in a business decision and B2B marketing. So understand your client, what your client needs to sell to their peers. If they're working with 600 individuals, each individual is going to want to know a different thing from your product. You have to make certain that you arm the individual you're working with the information, and so they can sell it to their peers and close that deal. 76% prioritize vendors suggested by their peers. So there's a good example that also feeds in obviously to word of mouth. Publish case studies, provide customer quotes. 41% of buyers use these case studies, testimonials when making decisions. So when you're designing your website, when you're doing your marketing, keep in mind that folks are going to be looking for case studies, testimonials. What has it done for someone else who has used it with success? They're going to look for who gives the client the most controls in their buying decision and who can customize options, industry-specific features. All of these help because they feel they can dive in, they can have more control over what it is they're buying and how it's going to fit their need. And then buy in that last stage now, if it does not end there. The persona is always going to want to be reminded of the value. And that's even when the deal is closed, a sale is closed, a new customer onboarded, is really where you're going to want to further sell that customer continually so that way you maintain that retention. Launch new products. Educate your customers on their value. Let them know this is designed, this is what it does. Monitor product usage. Create customer retention teams that ensure your customers are trained and using your product. Monitor their usage. Don't just monitor the revenue of new sales that come in. Monitor what your customers are doing with your product each month, each quarter, and utilize that to not only jump in and make certain they use it more, so you increase that retention, but also identify new key traits and interests that can be brought all the way back to that awareness phase. By understanding what individuals' pains are being solved by your product, you can apply that solution to the front-end awareness aspect of marketing and bring those individuals in, know that it's resonating with a proven aspect of your product or service. And 81% of buyers buy and stay due to these features and functionalities. So make certain that they utilize them. You also have to give the why the person is going to want to continue with the product. Enhanced differentiation through newsletters, email campaigns. Make certain you stay in touch with your customers, that they know what features you have. That ties back into making certain they utilize it. By making them aware of it, they'll understand why they have the product. Monitor client support issues to identify product and service enhancements. That's a whole lot of data that you can utilize, consume, digest, and apply backwards through all these various stages. Identify trends in attrition, competitors, lifespan, where value has, depreciated, fix those holes. When I would do script design for a new outbound campaign, let's say, the first thing I would do is I would have a team start working through that script, and every time they were interrupted, make a little note in that section and what that interruption was. And what you'll find is that at the end of the day, all the agents have pretty much the same spots marked and the same reasons why they're marked. So what then we would do is you take a look at the sentence right before that, change it to address what that objection is, and you find that you can cater it so you're addressing the objections in a conversation prior to them existing. The same thing can be applied to this aspect. By understanding why customers might be leaving, you can get ahead of that game and give them that reason why they're going to continue with your service prior to them making the decision of any sort of cancellation. And then ownership. Make sure your customers are owning their experience. Everybody wants to own their experience. They want to have a car show up where they want it. They want to know where their package is right away. They want to select exactly what channels they want. They want to select when they watch these shows. Everybody wants to own the experience. So remember that when you're marketing these campaigns or these products. Ease of product use, ability to customize or cater product enhancements that address customer needs, and then give them use case studies to demonstrate new product uses or service benefits. And so they're kind of turned it, hopefully, a little bit upside down, looked at it from a slightly different angle, not really a drill down into, outbound lead gen or email marketing or SEO marketing, but more in an understanding of, we all know what those stages are of the buying cycle. How can we look at them differently to make our message better received to our audience? And then you have awareness where the customer feels, I found it. You have that education stage where the customer is then, what does it do for me? They are owning that experience. Validation, who gives me the value? And then buying, why should I keep it? So that pretty much is my run through of the buying personas from, again, a slightly different vantage point. I hope everybody was able to take something from it, of course. And at that, I, would like to turn it back over to Larry.
Yeah, thank you, Curtis. And I think there's some great information, a lot of great information there. So much appreciated, and thank you to your team as well. Everyone, I'd like to remind you, we've got some time for Q&A. You can submit that down by the bottom of the screen, either through the Q&A or the chat log, and we'd be glad to address those. And we've got a couple of questions here. One is, you did a nice job, I think, of kind of identifying the different buying personas and kind of the three groups and work on them. But how does a person, Curtis, go about kind of identifying which persona their potential buyer goes into?
Well, a lot of it is preemptive assumption at those earlier stages where, you really identify that there's individuals out there that aren't aware of what it is that your product does for them. And so it's a little, putting it in those situations where those customers really might be. And then from that point, it's engaging with the customer, understanding, what kind of questions are they asking? Are they asking questions about, product comparisons, pricing information? Another way is feed them content. It's a very interesting process to send a email to your contact base and provide 3 or 4 different pieces of content. One in what the product solves, one is what the product does, one is vendor comparisons, and one is what, case studies. And what you can tell is by what the contact clicks on, where they are in that sales funnel. We would run nurturing campaigns like that, where if someone clicked on what the product is, well, we know that in a week, we want to send them another email with a few links to what it does for them. And then once we see that they've consumed that content, we want to then send them a vendor comparison, so then they can be fed that information as well and have that, and then move them on to case studies, and then down to a sales rep conversation, and then closing. So you can actually feed them down through that sales funnel just by monitoring what type of content they're consuming too.
Excellent. And Curtis, in the overall buying procedures today, how are you seeing it? Are decisions being made by groups, or are we still seeing a lot of individuals, or do you see a differentiation based upon the sizes of organizations?
I do. Obviously, the larger the company, the more people are going to be involved in the decision usually. But I definitely see in like that mid-range, I know the quoted reference is about 6. What I experienced personally in our particular product is usually a 2 or 3 person decision-making process. It's going to be usually, the individual that wants the product, anybody that it might be affecting or are tied to the results of that product are going to want to be involved in that decision-making process. And then obviously finance are going to want to be involved in regards to budgeting, etc. So what I do is I definitely make certain that my conversation with that first point of contact, I give him and arm them with the information that they can bring to these other parties, follow-up email after every conversation, guiding that individual, or at least arming them with the content. So when someone says, who is MarketJoy, they don't say, oh, it's just some company that does outbound lead gen. They say, here, let me shoot you over this email. And then I'm still in control of that conversation. But yeah, to answer your question in a long-winded way there, I would say between 2 and 6.
Yeah, and kind of the buying persona and the group buying, do you see particular personas associated with particular titles, where a CFO will typically be more financially minded, the IT director will be more technology centric, and how to play into those buying personas? Do you run into that much, or do you see that a lot in certain industries?
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes back to not only understanding, the personality of the buying persona, but what the responsibility is, especially in B2B sales. Any marketing or sales conversations, have taken into consideration that different buying personas or different job titles will ask for different items. Finance, they're not going to be the first person you're on the phone with, but when they are, they're going to want to know pretty straightforward, what's it going to cost, what's the return, what's the projected time frame, and what are the benchmarks and KPIs so they can keep track of it. Marketing is obviously going to want to understand, what materials going out there, how is it going to affect and improve what they're currently doing. Sales the same way. They're going to understand what's it going to do to my bottom line. How is it going to increase my close percentage? How is it going to lower my cost per lead by increasing that close percentage? So it'll be very specific in regards to what they want. So you have to keep that in mind when you're usually interacting with one single point of contact at a company, understanding that, again, you want to arm them with how fast that ROI is and what the cost is and where they're going to see that return on investment and how they're going to see that. They're going to see what material they're going to use and how it's going to be used. And keep that in mind. Also understand that there is a certain sense of ownership with, sales and marketing VPs and C-level titles, operational as well. When you're marketing to them, you have to overcome the fact that that's what they do for a living. So presenting them with something they can do better kind of insinuates that they're doing something less than better now. So all these items you want to keep in mind when you're both catering marketing messages and equipping your phone reps with, different word tracks.
Yeah, excellent. And reminder, folks, if you have any questions, feel free to submit them down by the Q&A chat. We do have a comment relative to selling to government agencies. And I don't know if there's other folks out there, but that are selling. But Curtis, can you speak to that a little bit? And I think typically federal here domestically, right?
Gotcha. We do actually operate campaigns that do work and focus on government agencies. You have to it's a little bit easier to get to the right person. I find navigating the food chain and going through other titles to find out who handles a certain job responsibility is easier. I tend to see a higher response rate, a longer sales cycle because it has more hoops to jump through. But I also see that with organizations like law enforcement, where you get really good, response rates and very engaged individuals. So I find both those, depending on the product, to be, very, very good verticals. We don't do anything extremely unique in those environments, though.
Any recommendations for some best practices for, lead generation and development in the government space?
In the government space in particular, I would say make certain that the messaging is polite, again, very non-pushy, more, focus on, again, solution, what your product can do for them to make their life easier without overriding what they're currently doing. Understand that they have budgets they have to work within, and their approval processes might take longer. And on that, in that particular vertical, that's what I would say.
Excellent. And kind of similar, what do you see any particular trends or dynamics with companies that are currently purchasing technology, for example?
With purchasing technology, yes, definitely. Everybody is looking. It's an easier market to get the awareness factor in, because it's a market that everybody's aware that there's solutions that they're, solutions out there that they're not aware that they need, if that makes sense, especially in the technology vertical, where getting your information out there and catching an ear or an eye will be a little bit easier because your audience is out there looking for what's new. So differentiators are going to be key. What it is that your product does different than anybody else. Numbers are going to be important. Long-winded scripts are going to be, not heard. Raw data, this is what we see. These are the percentages you should see change, whatever those value props are that you're utilizing. Be persistent, know that they're busy. We use three email cadences of 3 email series, both for our introduction emails and then 3 for our contact facing emails. So be relatively persistent. And when you're sending that second email, reference the first email. You might not have seen it. It draws more attention to it. When you're writing those type of emails, subject line should be short, as personalized as possible. Value prop company name would be the best. When you get into that email copy, you have very limited space. So with any campaign, whether it's a phone script or an email campaign, I strongly suggest looking for a challenging statement. Look for something that will catch a customer's eye, something that they think they know but can be done better. That challenger statement kind of breaks through and catches their attention, and then you want to hit them with value propositions very quick. And the idea is not to sell them through that, email or that newsletter. It's to get them to contact you, to reach out to you, to respond and say, yeah, I'll give you some time on Thursday. Let's chat, and move that individual from that, shopping phase and validation phase into that validation and buying phase.
Excellent. I think there's a very related question to that. And it's a 2-parter. It says, number 1, do you use LinkedIn messaging as part of your outreach? And the second part is, and how are you asking for that first scheduled call or first meeting that you were just kind of alluding to?
Gotcha. We do use LinkedIn for our company marketing. We don't directly use it on our particular campaigns, but we are familiar with that process. And then what was the second part of the question? I'm sorry. How do you get individuals to actually engage in that phone conversation?
Yeah, that first scheduled call or get that first meeting.
Absolutely. It's going to be about brevity and value proposition. Yeah, so you have to give that contact the reason why. That subject line has to be structured to say why I'm going to open it. That first line has to be structured, and that's where that challenging aspect comes in, to give them the why they need to continue even into that next sentence. That next sentence needs to give them some value proposition. You have to hit them very strongly with what your product can do, and then move into the fact that you simply cannot do justice in this email, which everybody would understand, and that you're simply asking for 15 minutes of their time this week. Keep it open. What day works? Then when they respond back, well, Thursday I have availability, then you can pinpoint the date and time, but keep it a very soft approach in that call to action. The main thing is just to engage them in a response. Once you engage them in a response, you can move them deeper into your sales funnel via, phone channels and conversations. But it's very quick to get in, continue to give them the why, challenge, value prop, keep it short, and, move into that conversation as soft as possible and keep it unthreatening and, they don't want to feel like they're obligating to something long, hour-long seminar for timeshares down the road. Let them know, 15 minutes, anytime this week would be a great time. I'll be able to explain you the value pretty quickly, and then you make a decision. Also, including case studies is always good in email, not as an attachment, but as a link. It also gives you another point of data to manage those type of campaigns. So you might find that you're running a campaign and you're seeing a 30% open rate, and you're not seeing a lead percentage that really is representative of what that open rate is, but you see a lot of individuals clicking through to case studies. Well, that gives you another avenue to pursue. Those individuals clicked on that link, and for them, it's the end of the story. They are familiar with your product now, and they move on. So they're a prime audience to present them with additional information, knowing that they've read that case study. So that in and of itself would be kind of a bifurcation of that same email campaign, but following them down that rabbit hole and engaging them further and pulling them up into, an actual lead that can then be passed to a sales rep and turned into an opportunity.
Yeah, great stuff there. And I just want to remind everybody that this is being recorded, and you'll all get access to the information, the replay information, so you can listen back and check out the slides as well. One last question we have here is around best practices with dealing with procurement, and how to second part there too a little bit, which is typically a tendency with bigger accounts and enterprise. How do you see that? Is there any thoughts there, advice you can give folks, Curtis, there?
In regards to the actual pulling the trigger in regards to paying for the product and moving them into a paying customer?
Yeah, the question is best practices essentially with dealing with procurement.
Gotcha. Again, just it comes down to, return on investment, how quickly they're going to see a return on the investment in your product. They'll be more likely to buy based on that.
Excellent. Well, Curtis, I think it's been a great session. We're really kind of got all the questions out. I don't know if there's any summary thoughts that you'd like to share with us, and we give maybe a little bit of time back to folks this afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I just would like to thank everybody for their time. Again, I hope everybody got just a slightly different way to look at what you're already doing. Remember, always you're giving the customer the reason why, regardless of the stage they're in, and they're going to have different whys that they need to fill. And also the ownership experience is imperative. Make certain that they feel that they own every stage of your marketing campaign, every stage of their product. The more you can do that, the longer you're going to have that customer and the higher that your conversions will be overall. And then, be conscious of lead gen campaigns when you're running them. KPIs, set benchmarks. Internal sales development teams without proper management can run for quite a bit of time, be very costly, and not yield results. So make certain you've got the right management in there. Look at options for outsourcing that. Obviously, there's companies that do that and can provide you with additional services and remove that section from your plate so you can focus on sales and driving product innovation. So be aware of your options. Make sure you research your options clearly. And, I'm always available for objective information across the board on anything that you feel I might be able to have some insight in. I am 100% available, MarketJoy related or not. Always love talking shop and welcome any interactions.
Well, we thank you for that, Curtis. And you see his information's here, as well as the contact information will be in the follow-up message, as well as information on how to learn more about MarketJoy. With that, Curtis, again, I want to thank you and your team. I think it was some excellent information. I appreciate your time and sharing it with everybody. I want to thank everybody for joining us. And with that, we're going to conclude today's session. And I wish everybody a good day and good selling. Take care. And thanks again, Curtis.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.